383. QIAO'S Daughter. In Pingyuan County, there lived a man named Xiao who had a daughter. She was dark-skinned and unattractive, with a flat nose and a limp. Despite being in her mid-20s, no one had come to ask for her hand in marriage. In the same county, there was a man named Mu who was in his 40s. His wife had passed away, and he was so poor that he couldn't afford to remarry. He offered a modest dowry and married Miss Xiao. 3 years later, they had a son. Unfortunately, Mu died shortly after. Miss Xiao's life became even more difficult, and she went to beg her mother for help. Her mother was impatient, and Miss Xiao, upset, decided not to visit her mother's house anymore and relied on weaving to make a living. There was a man named Meng who had lost his wife and was left with a son named Wu Tu, who was just a year old and had no one to take care of him. So Meng was eager to remarry. However, despite the matchmaker's several attempts, Meng was not interested in any of the proposed matches. One day, Meng happened to see Miss Xiao and liked her very much. He sent a secret message to Miss Xiao expressing his wish to marry her. Miss Xiao declined, saying, "I am now enduring cold and hunger. Marrying you would mean I could have enough to eat and wear, so how could I not want to? But I am lame and ugly, unlike others. The only thing I am confident about is my character. If I were to marry a second husband, what would you want from me?" Meng admired her for being a virtuous woman and loved her even more. He sent a matchmaker with a sealed amount of money to negotiate with Xiao's mother. Xiao's mother was very happy and personally went to her daughter's house, insisting that her daughter remarry Meng. Miss Xiao firmly refused. Xiao's mother felt ashamed and told Meng that she was willing to marry her younger daughter to him. Meng's family members were all very happy, but Meng himself was not willing. Not long after, Meng suddenly fell ill and died. Miss Xiao went to mourn him and cried bitterly. Meng had no relatives, and after his death, the village bullies came to harass his family. The things in his house were taken away, and his fields were plotted to be divided. The servants in his house also took the opportunity to steal things and leave. Only an old woman was left, holding Meng's son and crying in the mourning tent. Miss Xiao learned of the situation and was furious. She heard that Lin, a man from the same village, was very close to Meng's family, so she went to Lin's house and said, "Husband and wife, friends are the great ethics of human beings. Because I am ugly, I am looked down upon by others. Only Meng could understand me. Although I had refused his proposal before, my heart had already been given to him. Now that he is dead and his son is young, I should of course repay my confidant. But it is easy to raise an orphan, and it is difficult to resist the bullying of bad people. If because Meng has no parents or brothers, we just sit and watch his son starve to death and his property is robbed without rescue, then among the 5 ethics, we can do without the friend. What I expect from you is not much. Just write a statement and report it to the county official. I will raise the orphan." Lin said, "I'll do that." Miss Xiao then bid farewell and returned home. Lin prepared to write the statement as Miss Xiao had instructed. The bullies were furious and wanted to fight with Lin. Lin was very scared and closed the door and dared not come out. Miss Xiao waited for a few days and saw no movement, so she hurriedly went to ask, and Meng's fields had already been divided. Miss Xiao was furious, stood up, and went to the county official to sue. The county official asked Miss Xiao what kind of person she was to Meng, and Miss Xiao said, "You are the master of a county, and you judge cases based on reason. If what I sue is not true, even his relatives cannot escape the crime. If it is true, even a passerby can listen." The county official was angry at her harsh words, scolded her, and drove her away. Miss Xiao's grievances could not be expressed, so she went to a local gentry's house to cry. The gentry listened and thought that Miss Xiao was very righteous, so he went to the county official to clarify the right and wrong for her. After the county official found out the truth, he punished those bullies and recovered all the things that had been robbed from Meng's house. Some people suggested that they wanted to keep Miss Xiao in Meng's house to facilitate her raising his orphan. Miss Xiao refused, locked the door of Meng's house, let the old woman hold Wu Tu and go back with her and live in another room in her own house. For all of Wu Tu's daily needs, Miss Xiao and the old woman would go to Meng's house together, open the door, take out the food, and arrange for Wu Tu. She never touched a bit of Meng's light, still holding her son to live a poor life, just like before. After a few years, Wu Tu gradually grew up. Miss Xiao hired a teacher for him to study. Her own son was told to learn to work. The old woman persuaded her to let her son study with Wu Tu, and Miss Xiao said, "Wu Tu's expenses are his own. If I spend other people's money to teach my own children, how can I explain my intentions?" After a few more years, Miss Xiao saved up a few hundred stones of grain for Wu Tu and married him to a daughter of a large family. She also renovated the house and let Wu Tu return to his own home to live. Wu Tu cried and repeatedly asked her to go to his house to live together, and Ms. Qiao agreed. But she still spun and wove to make a living. Wu Tu and his wife took away the spinning and weaving tools, and Ms. Qiao said, "If we mother and son eat without working, how can we feel at ease?" So she got up early and went to bed late to manage Wu Tu's housework. She let her son go to check the crops, just like a servant. If Wu Tu and his wife made a little mistake, Ms. Qiao always scolded and blamed them, never tolerant. If there was a slight change, Ms. Qiao would be angry and want to go back. It was not until the couple knelt down and admitted their mistakes and repented that she stopped. Soon, Wu Tu passed the exam and became a scholar. Ms. Qiao wanted to bid farewell and go home again, but Wu Tu disagreed and paid for her son to marry a wife. Ms. Qiao then divided her son out to go home. Wu Tu couldn't keep him, so he secretly let someone buy 100 acres of good land from a nearby village and sent Ms. Qiao's son away. Later, Ms. Qiao fell ill and wanted to go back, but Wu Tu still disagreed. Seeing that her condition was deteriorating, Ms. Qiao instructed Wu Tu, "You must bury me together with Mr. Mu in his grave." Wu Tu agreed. After Ms. Qiao died, Wu Tu used money to buy off Mu's son and let her mother be buried with his own father, Meng. On the day of the burial, the coffin was particularly heavy and 30 people could not lift it. Mu's son suddenly fell to the ground, bleeding from his 7 orifices, and said to himself, "How can an unfilial son sell his own mother?" Wu Tu was scared and quickly knelt down and prayed, and Ms. Qiao's son got better. The coffin was stopped for a few more days, and when Mu's tomb was repaired, Wu Tu buried Ms. Qiao with Mu. Mr. Escher remarks, "To feel indebted to a confidant and to devote oneself to him is what a vigorous man does." How did this woman come to grasp the notion that a gentleman gives his life for a confidant? And how can her exceptional character be articulated? If she met Jiufeng Gao, 31, he would definitely regard her as a righteous man.